Hello summoners, welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Nathaning, and today we'll be talking about the 10 best junglers on patch 12.5. When you're playing the one role that can influence how all three lanes play out, it's a pretty good idea to take one of these power picks to control the flow of the game. We'll be starting off with Khazix. Remember when Camille was insanely broken pretty much all of season 11, and Riot pretty much made no effort to nerf her, but nuked any other champion that even looked relevant? Well, Khazix is in the same boat. But unlike Camille, Khazix doesn't have the high skill floor to be able to actually carry games. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that, out of all the assassins in the game, he's the easiest by a pretty big margin. He has no real skill shots or combos to worry about, and you don't even have to be fed to do your job. Plus, there's the fact that you can build pure one-shot lethality for squishies, or a bit more bruiser-ish if you want to be dueling tankier foes. All in all, he's very low risk, high reward, able to carry games hard while providing utility, at a difficulty level that anybody can pick up and play. Whether you're trying to abuse broken champions on this list or how to deal with them when you end up on the wrong side of the matchup, if you really want to speed up the process, you should check out ProGuides.com. We have courses from all your favorite streamers and pros like CoreJJ, Afromoo, and Xmithy to really help you understand how to play your role. And if you want a more personalized experience, we have coaches available 24/7 ready to help you guys become the best. Our coaches are top tier players that have spent years climbing the solo queue ladder to get where they are now, and they're ready to share everything that they've learned with you. You can find the link on our website down in the description box below. Now let's get back to the video, shall we? Another super low risk but very high reward champion is Diana. She's the only champion that I think can truly compete with Khazix for being considered the best jungler in the game. While they of course have their own pros and cons, the one really big thing that Diana brings to the table is that she can actually engage fights, something that no other assassin is really capable of doing. In fact, aside from her ridiculously high burst damage, Diana doesn't really play like an assassin at all. She's more of a bruiser, just one that can completely one-shot 3 squishes at a time. Anyway, Diana is just too safe of a pick for all that carrying power that she brings. She clears the jungle insanely fast, has good dueling even early, and with her relatively high range gap closer, her ganks are pretty strong even pre-6. Once you have her ultimate, she also becomes one of the best team fighters in the game. Like most OP champions, part of her strength comes from her flexible itemization. You can alter your build to be tankier if you're the only engager on your team, going for Zhonya's second. Or you can even go an actual tank build, though that obviously means less carrying power. If you need higher DPS and less front-loaded damage, you can also rush Nashor's Tooth. That's personally what I do a lot of the time, but I know it's not good for one-shotting the backline, so you can choose what's best for you based on your playstyle. If you'd rather play a tank jungle than a carry, then Zac is the pick for you. At the moment, he's the best champion in that class in this role. The other really big advantage that he brings over the other tanks is that he's not hard-gated by needing his ultimate to be available to be useful. In fact, Zac's ultimate is practically just auxiliary when it comes to ganking. It's more useful in teamfights, where it gives extra disruption and healing. All you need to do with Zac to secure kills when ganking is to fly in with your E and land your Q. Doing that basically ensures that you get kills. Now, the one thing that I will say is that he does have to wait a little bit before he comes online. His E's range scales with rank. At rank 1, you can barely even reach most foes, but once you hit level 9 and have it maxed out, you can gank any lane from any angle. This allows you to be putting insane pressure on the enemy team and is especially OP against immobile laners. I personally recommend spam ganking mid if it's an easy to kill mage, since you can come from so many different directions that they can't possibly ward them all. All it takes is them taking a step out of tower range and they're yours. If you're a super aggressive player and wants to win the game by 20 minutes or less, then maybe RekSai is more your speed. Anytime the jungle meta is clearly early game focused, RekSai immediately climbs to the top of the charts. And being as the game as a whole has been early game focused for quite a while, RekSai is an amazing pick. Interestingly enough, she's not that popular, but that's good news if you want to abuse her. For one, she's not as contested, and two, people aren't so used to playing against her. So you're more likely to see foes disrespecting your super high tempo map presence. Once you get a lead on RekSai, it's really easy to push that lead hard and close out the games before the enemy team is able to scale. The one weakness that RekSai has is 5v5 teamfights, where her telegraphed engages are pretty easy for champions like Thresh or Janet to peel for, but you can circumvent that by never actually playing for teamfights. Instead, constantly look for picks before objectives spawn. Up next, we have everybody's favorite imbalanced champion, Hecarim. This guy packs a ton of horsepower. Anytime Hecarim is in the meta, he just doesn't really feel fair to play against. He has the damage of any bruiser carry, but the durability to match any tank. And his engages leave little to no room for counterplay. He just pops Chem Tank and then Ghost, runs at a squishy target, gets behind him, and shoves him towards his team. If they try to flash your E, just follow up with their ultimate anyway. The standard tank build is the best all around, but if you feel that you need more damage, or the enemy team just isn't all that threatening, you can go for Trinity Force instead. It does a lot better than Divine Sunderer as a damage mythic. Now let's look at Fiddlesticks. He's the best pick in the jungle if you're a player that prefers to go for scaling. He's pretty much the god of teamfighting. So if you're not really proactive early, you'll probably want to give him a go. I know how we often talk about how it's an early game focused meta, so the picks that are strong early are generally the best, but that just speaks to how strong his team fighting really is. His 5v5 presence outweighs his lack of an early game. When you pick Fiddlesticks, the one rule that you need to stick by is farm first, fight later. Unless you have his ultimate, it's pretty much impossible to force anything to happen. You absolutely need to stay on top of your farm game so you have the levels to carry fights. His biggest spike is at 11. At that point and anytime after, hitting 3+ people with his ultimate should all but guarantee an easy wipe for the enemy team. When it comes to the so-called elo inflating champions, Fiddlesticks is definitely up there at the top of the list. Like I said, you don't really need to have to participate in the early game, and you can still massively carry team fights. This allows you to bypass having an otherwise core skill set for playing jungle. And that brings us to today's question of the day. What are some of the other super elo inflating junglers? It doesn't have to be picks that are OP at the moment. Past or present picks are all welcome. Let us know your answers down in the comments below. Next up we have Trundle. Trundle may have a very simple, almost antiquated kit, but he's just as strong as any of the overloaded modern champions. If anything, his simple kit is more of a strength. Because he's so easy to use, he's one of the best picks for climbing because all you have to worry about are things like pathing and macro. He can stat check almost any champion in a duel. In fact, he's the only champion that I think that can count as a definitive hard counter to Diana, since he can take her on 1v1 at all stages of the game. And you can throw yourself and your E at her in fights to prevent her from ever reaching the backline. The only issue that Trundle may have is dealing with ranged champions, like Graves or Kindred, but even in those tougher matchups, focus on pathing around him and playing for your team, not the 1v1, and you'll be fine. While the nerfs brought Nunu down from the #1 spot in the jungle, he didn't fall very far. He's still a very good pick. He's strong at all stages of the game, with solid ganking, skirmishing, and objective control. Plus he's a tank, so he fits into any team comp. If you purely want to be as tanky as possible, you can go for a page that runs Aftershock with Triumph and Tenacity as your secondaries. But bear in mind that Phase Rush does synergize super well with Nunu. That extra movement speed and slow resistance means that you can stick to opponents, even when they flash away, so you'll want that in almost all games. That being said, if the enemy team is mostly short-range champions, and you don't think that they'll be kiting away, the Aftershock page may be worth it. One last variation that you can make to this build is by picking up some damage. Nunu already does decent damage, with Sunfire and Thornmail making him hell for auto attackers to deal with. But if you want even more carrying strength, you can go for Demonic Embrace and even Magi's. But I'd only recommend that if there's another frontliner on your team. A super slept on pick every season is Skarner. I feel Skarner is pretty much always somewhere around the 53% win rate in Plat Plus, but he's also consistently one of the least picked junglers. I mean, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. The only explanation for that is probably because he's not very fun to play, but I personally think that's a dumb excuse. For one, when you're playing to climb, you should really be focused on what works. And two, Skarner really isn't just some boring ult bot. I mean, yes, that's definitely a big part of what makes him good, but Skarner is also just all around a really strong champion when you play him correctly. When you fight on his spires, he's more than a capable duelist, able to go toe-to-toe with almost anybody else in the jungle. You can even build him to carry, going for Trinity Force or Sunderer and running Conqueror. Obviously, this lowers your pick potential quite a bit, so think about what you need for your game before doing that. Finishing off our list, we have Echo. I don't know what it is about this champion, but he just always seems to pop off in the jungle. Like the other assassins on this list, a big reason of why he's a strong pick is that he's extremely safe. His ultimate gives you the ultimate bailout tool, so every play that you make with it up is low risk. A lot of you are probably going to look at the build and think that we messed up by leaving out Zhonya's. I mean, it synergizes so well with this kit and playstyle, right? Well, if you play him in the correct way, you shouldn't really need Zhonya's in most cases. In fact, if anything, it gives the enemy team a chance to time a spell and to CC you right as you come out of stasis, leaving you unable to ult at all. Unless you use your W right before you use Zhonya's, which is a really nice skill. It usually is better to go in, one-shot a foe, and then get out. His ultimate should provide all the safety that you need for that. And that wraps up our 10 best junglers on patch 12.5. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure you sub so you never miss out on our meta guides and you're always in the loop on what the best picks are. Remember to let us know some of the elo inflating jungle picks down in the comments below. And one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description box below, where you can enter a giveaway or just hang out and be part of the community. I can't wait to see you guys back in the next video, but until then, you know the drill. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.